Hey guys, it's Adam from Pixel, and I'm very excited to bring you my full professional digital painter, illustrator, concept artist, animator, tattoo artist review of the 2024 M4 iPad Pro. Just so you know, this is the entry-level iPad Pro, the 256 gig, 8 gigs of RAM version. Cut straight to the chase, you don't need anything more powerful than that. They're already overpowered as far as that goes. But I want to put emphasis on the fact that this is I'm coming from the angle of a professional artist, not hobbyist, who's been doing this for over 20 years. I've been teaching since 2015. I've been working in film and gaming as a concept artist and illustrator for 20 plus years at this point. This is my life. This is my baby. And I've worked on every piece of tech imaginable. I've reviewed multiple iPad Pros in the past, so I can offer you a good in-depth, unbiased comparison and buying guide for you, depending if this is something you want to get for yourself, and or if you don't want to get it at all, depending on your particular use case. We're going to start with something that actually nobody has even spoken about the iPad to date, which I find like, what? Look how thin this thing is. Oh my God, this is so thin. Yeah, it is thin. And from an artist's perspective, well, whatever, right? When we're artists, we're looking at the face of it. I've got it on a stand. You'd be hard pressed to be able. You'd be grabbing the wrong iPad constantly. I did. I grabbed the wrong iPad multiple times when I was just looking at the front of it. When you're holding it in your hand, however, this does feel like future tech. And it was the first time after multiple generations of iPads, I've owned pretty much every generation of iPad, that the 2022 2-year-old iPad felt old in my hand. This really does feel like a total redesign, which it is. There's so much internally and externally that has changed on this, which I'll get to. That said, however, like I said, from an artistic perspective, you're looking at the front of it and you've got it sitting on a table 99% of the time anyway, so it's really not an issue as far as that goes. Let's start by talking about the screen. So what's relevant to an artist? This is relevant to an artist. This is my instrument, and this is my bow. This is my violin, and this is my bow. I need these to perform professionally in order to do my job. And the better quality, the better tuned my instrument is, the better my performance, confided I have professional artistic skill. Okay? But talking about the screen first and foremost, again, comparing it to the M2 mini LED screen. All Apple displays, the Apple Studio display, iPads, iPhones, iMacs, MacBooks, all of them are industry leading. They have been industry leading for as long as I know. So any not ridiculously old Mac product, Apple product, you can rest assured that the display is top tier display. So this is not the professional device where all the other ones weren't. However, there's a noticeable difference. Not only in terms of the higher contrast, the fact that this is a tandem OLED, it's an actual dual layered OLED screen, and the other ones are mini LEDs, but the color accuracy. I was very surprised that looking at the M2 iPad Pro compared to the M4, I could see a green shift, a little bit of a green. It's very, very, very minor. Mind you, it's still an excellent display, but I was like, I could really see the purity of the colors on the tandem OLED. And what Apple's actually accomplished with this tandem OLED is no small feat. It's not, a lot of people are treating this like, oh, finally, Apple, you caught up with the game. They didn't catch up with the game. The technology, this tandem OLED technology, not only from my perspective, but I've seen the perspective of many engineers, is remarkable. The fact that they've engineered this dual OLED that is lower power consumption, lower heat, lower bloom, higher brightness, while maintaining all that incredible dynamic range, inky blacks and whites, helps in battery life. This is noticeably better battery life than my former iPad, although they're saying it's about the same. I'm noticing a difference, but the image quality and the performance on this is absolutely stellar. So if every other Apple display, or most other Apple displays, particularly the Pro ones, are A-tier displays, this is an absolute S-tier display as far as that goes. Is it worthwhile to get professionally if you can afford it? Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. If you can't, don't sweat it. In fact, now's a really hot time to buy a used or refurbished M2 iPad Pro because everybody's going to start selling off their M2s to get the M4s now. So the market's hot for secondhand devices. This is a good time to buy a one generation older device, and I love the M2 iPad Pro. I've worked on it a lot. Okay? While we're on the subject of displays, nano texture. No, don't do it. Not if you're for somebody who does video production and you don't draw on your display and you're not using a textured screen protector and you like that and you're working in a very bright environment, sure, but you are taking a hit to image quality. You are reducing the contrast. The blacks are not going to be as dark. But in the case of an artist, you don't want that because you want to maintain the most accurate color fidelity, and you're going to be putting a textured screen protector on it. You do not want to double up diffusion layers or you're going to destroy the image quality. So it's absolutely unnecessary for you. If you're somebody who doesn't mind having a permanent screen protector, I definitely recommend the Paper-like. I think they're ones who kind of nailed it the best. The paper texture feels the best with the best image quality. If you want a magnetic one, the one that you can remove and have benefit from both having a textured surface and be able to remove it for the nice base glass image quality, I recommend the Astroped rock paper pencil. I did a review of it and I really, really loved it. And I'm not usually a fan of magnetic screen protectors. They really nailed it in that regard. Now moving on to keyboards, this now equals this. Put it to you that way. If you want to know what it feels like to type on the new iPad Magic Keyboard, the M4 iPad Magic Keyboard, it feels like you're typing on an Apple Magic Keyboard. It doesn't feel like you're typing on an Apple Magic iPad keyboard, which has a bit more of a plastic feel. The new haptic trackpad, the F key, the F row, all of the way the buttons click and everything like that, fantastic. The only thing I'm going to mention is you can on a flat surface, it's nice and stable on a flat surface, but you're on a softer surface like your knees or a couch or a carpet, it is back heavy when the iPad is connected to it, and it takes nothing more than one little nudge and the thing tips over. So I would not have the iPad on my knees, draw with it, and then sit back and talk on the phone. Expect this thing to tip over, because I noticed that it was lifting up a little bit. It wasn't sitting flush. It was definitely back heavy. So just take note of it. But this is an absolute upgrade and I absolutely love the way it is. Fantastic. However, when an artist is working professionally, I'm using this, an artist stand that sits ergonomic. It's got an adjustable stand to it where I can adjust it at different heights. This is my personal budget option for something that slips in the bag. This is the one from Astroped again. The other one I really, really like that has more adjustability is the one by Parblo. I did a full iPad stands review, magnetic stands, desktop stands for artists. You can check it out right over here. You'll get all my opinions there, and I'll let you know which ones are my personal favorites. While we're on the subject of stands, not anymore. So if you got a magnetic stand, you can get the magnets to line up, but do so with caution. It doesn't connect perfectly. I know, I don't feel safe letting go of that. So the new iPad, all of the internals have been moved around. All the magnets for the pencil and for the MagSafe on the back have been moved. So you can fiddle with it and eventually get the magnets to line up. Yeah, there we go. This feels okay. So that's holding on its own. That feels semi-secure. But I've got a bunch of these stands. I did a bunch of reviews. Banks, Kensington, Chart. This is my personal favorite. This is the Mag Float stand by Charge & Pro, and I have the VESA version of this as well. They're my personal favorite. They're going to have to upgrade those. So expect to eventually have to splurge out an extra cost. Now, if you're using something like a stand like this, that's not an issue because it just sits in it. It doesn't magnetize. So that's not an issue. For drawing and stuff like that, don't worry about it. But that's definitely a thing. Oh yeah, and another little thing. You can draw on this if I didn't mention it earlier. You can. I was worried that because it's a bit back heavy, if I was drawing it would cause it to tip over. Not really. Not on a flat surface, it's quite sturdy. It's not going to tip over, so you should be fine there. This baby over here, the Apple Pencil Pro. Months ago, Apple came out with a USB-C dummied down, no pressure sensitivity version. And all of those simpleton tech reviewers like, oh my God, why would they do that? That's so stupid. My cat's reacting to my link. He's doing his cute stretch thing. He's like, why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? Oh my God, right? And I'm like, no, you idiots. The reason why they're doing it is for the same reason they've been doing a lot of things that you dumb tech YouTubers don't catch. They are really separating demographics. We have our common user, we have our professional artist user. When the Apple Studio display came out, everybody said, why would you charge so much for it's an overpriced Thunderbolt display with speakers and a webcam. Why would you do something that's so stupid? And I'm like, dude, no, that is an iMac split in half. So now I can have matching dual triple monitors for professional work that match and live by an Apple standard instead of having an iMac and an external separate display. Now I can get multiple displays. I can get VESA options, all this kind of stuff. Duh. Okay, but they didn't get it. Okay. Same thing happened with this when the USB-C one came out. They were all going, why would you do that? That doesn't make sense. You see all these people doing thumbnails like this. No, they're doing that so that people who are just using it for writing, note-taking, etc. can use a standard pencil. They don't need to pay this exorbitant amount for pen pressure and a double tap feature that doesn't serve them any logical purpose. They're not using it for professional work. That's an artist tool. So they did that so that they could redesign the Apple Pencil and add more pro features to it. On the outside, yeah, this is a very anticlimactic visual thing. It's identical. The only difference is the fact that this has the Pro moniker written after Pencil. It's not just the Pencil, it's the Pencil Pro. But this pinch feature, this haptic pinch feature, is a big deal for somebody like me. Why? Because on the original Apple Pencil, it only had double tap. And that double tap only actuates if you're really close to the tablet. And it was finicky. You have to tap it in a specific area. So you have to use writer's grip and go right down to the tip because it doesn't work higher up the thing. And sometimes it works, sometimes it didn't. And then it would work when you didn't want it to. So if I adjusted my hands and accidentally actuated the double tap, then it would change my things. And I was like, oh my God, this is driving me crazy. I hate this. So I got myself a pencil grip. This is the paper-like one. I like this one because it actually magnetizes while the grip is on, so you don't have to take it off and lose it. I really like that. And it's got a nice little pinch grip to it. And I got this for multiple reasons. A nice, thick, ergonomic grip for better control when you're drawing. It also magnetizes in pairs when the grip is on, but it's also preventing accidental double taps of the pen that was driving me absolutely nuts. I said, screw it. I use an external keyboard anyways for when I'm doing serious work. I'm not using iPad shortcuts. I'm using this for my keyboard shortcuts. It's a lot faster. So screw the double tap. I actually thought when they came up with the new Apple Pencil that they were replacing double tap with the pinch. They didn't. They've added it to it. So technically the Apple Pencil now has two functions, double tap and pinch. And both of them actuate a haptic response. The double tap has a haptic response and the click has a haptic response. And if you want to know what it feels like, if you've ever used AirPods Pro, think of a larger pencil-sized version of an AirPod Pro. If I could describe the way it feels in the hand, it kind of feels a little bit like a knuckle. It's got a knuckle click to it. You know, if you crack your knuckles a little bit, it's got a little bit of that. It's quite nice, actually. It's a nice soft finger-like tap to it. That said, I was very concerned that Apple might fail at implementing it in certain ways. Number one, my first question was, does it work with a grip? Because I like my grips, right? It works perfectly with a grip. So there you go. It's working perfectly right now. As long as your iPad is active, the haptic's going to work. As soon as I lock my iPad, this stops working. It's like I'm squeezing a stick. It's really interesting. It kind of fools the brain a little bit, but it works. Second thing, I didn't realize it works anywhere. I can click it over here. I can click it over here. It works perfectly. So I can just sit there and I can go click and actuate something like that. I don't have to worry about hovering close to the thing. It's just a nice to have. It just makes it work a little bit better. But here's something that artists are really going to appreciate about this. Something I wasn't even predicting or hoping for. Artists don't just hold pencils like this, styluses like this, unless they're using a thicker Wacom style, Wacom into a Zen Slabs type of thing. It forces you to have to use writing grip for that. But very often if I'm sketching, an Apple Pencil is thin, so it allows you to use more of an artist grip when you're holding it like this, right? So artists like to hold it in different ways. That haptic pinch goes halfway down the pen. So this right here in the middle of the pen, this is actuating. So this whole half of the pen actuates it. So I can use it in artist grip and actuate the pinch. And it's working with a grip. Phenomenal. But there's one more condition for this to be perfect. And that was, is this haptic pinch a click or a press and hold? That's relevant for me because, for instance, I want to use it as an eyedropper tool. If I just want to open a menu, then just click, open the menu, that's it. Pick what I want and I move on. But if this is an eyedropper tool, that's a press and hold feature. And it makes a very notable difference if you're press and holding and or clicking to activate eyedropper. Because if I'm clicking to activate eyedropper, I'm click, tap, click, draw. Click, tap, click, draw. When you're doing this 600 times a day, that's a real flow buster. I don't like that. No, you want to go press, tap, draw, press, tap, draw, press, tap, draw. That's how you want to do it. And I'm very happy to announce that the click feature, although they haven't implemented it into my favorite apps like Procreate or Art Studio Pro, they haven't updated that yet. They will be. Art Studio Pro is really quick on that most of the time, usually within the first week of release. There's 2 clicks when you do a squeeze. One slightly harder click, one haptic click when you squeeze, and another one, gentler one when you let go. So it's letting you know, it's like click, 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 click. You feel it. And that's letting my brain know that I'm pressing and holding and then I'm letting go, which means it's a press and hold feature. I'm not sure if it's possible, whether certain apps are going to implement this, but you could actually add more functionality to this if you have a single click or a double click. Why not? Right? It makes sense. So one click is the eyedropper, double click opens the menu. And now, whether or not I use the double tap feature or not is irrelevant to me. At least I have my eyedropper tool and I'm perfectly happy with that. So really, Apple, 2 enthusiastic thumbs up. If I have any suggestions for Apple moving forward, it would have been cool if they actually make a thicker version of the pen with more of a thick ergonomic grip to it. Now I wouldn't have to use a grip with it, and I wouldn't have to forego any features. You can, by the way, with the the paper-like pen grip, the one that I'm using with the flat side, you can flip it over onto its flat magnetized side. And if you tap it right, you can get it to actuate, but it's finicky. I want to talk about a few hot topics. One is when the M2 iPad Pro came out, I was very, very privy to the fact that a lot of people were triggered that the Apple Pencil Hover, an essential feature that I'm a big fan of, check it out right here in this talk over here. It was a money grab, that it was a software feature that was hidden behind a paywall. You'd have to upgrade to the new technology. Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I don't know if this is chip-based, technology-based, panel-based, or software-based. I don't know. Maybe there's a video on it. So I can't speak on that behalf. What I can tell you is that Apple Pencil Hover is an essential feature for a professional artist. Without Apple Pencil Hover, I don't recommend buying an iPad at all. Full stop. However, I'm going to take one for the team when it comes to the Apple Pencil. For my first impression of it was, really? Because I had announced in my original first impressions announcement video about a week ago, I'm like, I thought, I misread that it said it was also compatible with the M2 iPad Pro. So I was like, oh, cool, then I just have to buy the new pencil. But I realized everybody wrote the comment after, no, it's only the M4s or the M2 iPad Airs. And I was like, oh, shit. Now, I already knew I was going to want to upgrade to the M4 iPad Pro. So I said, oh, okay, screw it. I'll get it anyways. I'll get it now since everybody wants to know about the product. But no, it's only compatible with the 2 recent releases, M2 iPad Air, M4 iPad Pro. However, knowing now that all of the internals have been changed, the fact that they had to move the webcam to the middle means they've had to move all of the magnets and relocate the magnets inside the iPad Pro and put a whole bracing through the middle of it. If you've watched any breakdowns of this, like stress tests of it, the battery's been moved. All of the internals have been shifted around. They had to break some eggs and piss a few people off because this thing just simply would not magnetize with that webcam in the middle. That was why they had to have the webcam on this stupid side, so the camera's aiming at your ear all the time. They had to fix that. So they said, screw it. We're going to piss some people off. We want to phase out the old Apple Pencil anyways. So there you go. So my personal opinion, I'm not pissed off. I don't think that it's a money grab from Apple. I think it was a necessary step. They had to make some major internal changes to the iPad and the Pencil, and those were just casualties of war, I'm afraid. Now, I want to make a quick mention. In my last video, I also spoke about some nice to haves. It would be nice if you could, I don't know what they're going to do with iPadOS 18. It's going to be coming out this month with the WWDC, but I thought it would be really cool. One of the things, if you could connect this as an external monitor and use this as a desktop pen display for your iPad. And somebody said, dude, Sidecar. I'm like, oh yeah. I remembered messing around with Sidecar when they first implemented it, but found it very laggy and it kept disconnecting and I couldn't use it for Zoom calls because I teach professionally and stuff. So I wanted to have a nice hardware connected pen display. So I've been using my Cintiq and it's bigger anyway. So I would definitely continue to use that for teaching professionally. But I went, yeah, you're right. So I decided to give Sidecar a chance again. And yeah, it works pretty well. It works really, it's quite reliable. I don't know how it would work under very high load situations like Zoom calls and webcams going off and all that kind of crap. I don't know. But it was working quite well. And when I did that, I immediately fired up Photoshop and started drawing in Photoshop, and it worked. It's Photoshop on the iPad. And I drew on it for a little while, and it was, I've been working in Photoshop for over 20 years. It worked perfectly. But I'll tell you something. I was very surprised. I wasn't totally crazy about Photoshop on the iPad. I didn't think it was super for whatever reason. The interface felt out of place on an iPad. The functionality felt a little bit weird and basic on an iPad. And I messed around with it for a little while. And then I switched over to Art Studio Pro and iPad native. They have an iPad native app. It's my favorite iPad app for drawing and painting. I'm not a fan of Procreate for that reason. The brush engine is not my personal taste. And I much preferred working in Art Studio Pro. Art Studio Pro to me is the iPad. It's the Photoshop replacement on an iPad. And I think due to the fact that the interface and the design was optimized for an iPad, I preferred the iPad software. Yeah. Now, final thoughts and recommendations. For most of you who aren't YouTube reviewers or don't have a lot of supplementary income and like buying the best of the best because you're just the biggest tech geeks in the world and you have to have the latest shit all the time. If you're really looking for a pro device, I'd say now is the hot time to buy an M2 refurbished or used iPad Pro. These tablets, people take care of them. They look new for 25 years. I know people who are working on like 15-year-old Macs and they still can do professional work on it. So, they start getting long in the tooth after that many years, but these devices have longevity. You're getting industry-leading display, beautiful colors, more power than you could possibly ask for in an M2 or even an earlier generation. The only one I wouldn't recommend for an iPad Pro is one that doesn't support Apple Pencil Hover. I'm just such a stickler for Apple Pencil Hover. To me, that is a necessity. So my first recommendations would be M2 iPad Pro, or I would look seriously into the M2 iPad Air, the one that was just released, because that supports the Apple Pencil Pro, and this also supports the Apple Pencil Hover. And they now come in 12.9 inch, and they've got really, really good Apple display. You can't go wrong with an Apple display. However, this is better. It's lighter. It's got better image quality. It's got better performance. It's got better colors. It's got a better trackpad. It supports a better pencil. It's better. But is it a necessity for professional work? No, the M2 iPad Pro was already a professional device. This is just a professionaler device. And it's more expensive and it's prettier. Okay, so that's your wallet, that's your budget. I'll let you decide for yourselves. I personally love this. The only reason why don't have the M2 iPad Pro here as a comparison is because yesterday I decided, hands down, I'm committing myself to the M4, and I already sent my M2 in for trade-in, so I want my money back. So that's why I did that basically. So hopefully this will help you make an informed decision. Think before you buy, and happy shopping. Take care.